Manhattan Borough President Mark Levine has a lot of post-pandemic problems to deal with. But first, I'd like to talk about the rise in anti-Semitism and how to combat hate crimes. You have talked a lot about the fact that there has been a recent spate of vandalism in Manhattan. What do you think should be done about it?
Well, not just Manhattan, but specifically on the Upper East Side, we've seen a series of really horrible incidents, anti-Semitic graffiti on synagogues, a series of what they call swatting incidents, where basically they call in a bomb threat to a synagogue while the service is happening. Just terrible stuff. And we got together leaders from all segments of the community on the East Side this week to denounce this, but also to point out that there's a loophole in the hate crimes laws that does not allow charging of hate crimes for offenses like graffiti or swatting. Unclear. False reporting, filing a false police report is not eligible for hate crimes, but that's really the law they're violating for these so-called swatting attacks. And we're going to be talking to our allies in state government and the DA's office about how to fix this in the days ahead.
Because I know from the Anti-Defamation League, there's been a huge increase in swatting crimes statewide, but also nationwide.
Yeah. There have been dozens nationally, maybe from the same perpetrator, but 3 have been in Manhattan and 2 on the East Side. And for folks who don't know, you could be in the middle of a Shabbat morning service and a fake bomb threat is called in,
all of a sudden
and the police arrive and clear everybody out. And it's very scary, and it diverts police resources, and it should be considered a hate crime. They're only targeting synagogues.
So one of the biggest problems that you have post-pandemic is the fact that because of remote working and other things, there's a lot of empty office buildings in Manhattan. What do you want to do about it?
It's the older buildings in particular that are not filling up and may never fill up. There's an opportunity there to address our severe housing shortage by converting them to residential. That turns out to be a little more complicated than people might think from a lot of perspectives. I mean, just think about getting plumbing and making sure you have a window for every bedroom. But it can be done. And the mayor and I and allies in the council and assembly held a press conference last week to announce initial steps to that at a building, 95 Madison Avenue, which is going to be converted. This can be done, but we're going to have to push hard.
This seems to me, though, that the fact that you'd have to build bathrooms and kitchens and have windows could be cost prohibitive, and could it make these apartments, with the rents in the apartments, be high?
Yeah, this is what happened in Lower Manhattan, right? The financial district has had a huge boom in conversions to residential, but they're pretty much all luxury because of the cost that you described.
And we need affordable housing.
Exactly. And so we're going to have subsidy from the state to ensure we get affordable units. And that deal did not quite get to the finish line in the last Albany session. Unfortunately, we've got to keep pushing on that. I hope they come back in the fall and do it.
So another part of that is that you want to do rezoning of manufacturing areas south of Times Square.
Right.
What can that accomplish, and can you do affordable housing there and not just luxury housing?
I mean, first, people are surprised when I say, you know, there's parts of Manhattan zoned for manufacturing. It's because the last time it was updated was 1961. And you look at the garment district, only 2% of that manufacturing space is actually being used for garment manufacturing. A lot of it's sitting empty. That should be available to convert to apartments. In that case, the way the zoning law is written, it would trigger a requirement that about 30% of the units would be affordable. So I feel better about that situation, and perhaps we could get even more if we put subsidy in. Huge opportunity there that's waiting to be grabbed in the garment.
Is it easier to turn an area, a building that's been used for manufacturing, into apartments, or is it harder?
Relative to an office building?
Yeah.
Well, these are 100-year-old buildings, and so they don't have the kind of massive floor plates the size of a football field you see in these like 1970s era office buildings in Midtown. The buildings, they say, have good bones. They have high ceilings and big windows. So you can do it. It won't be cheap, but we can create probably 5,000 or 6,000 apartments in the garment district, which would just be a huge win for housing in Manhattan.
But see, given the fact that so many of the subway lines lines come into that part of the city, into Times Square and other places, doesn't this make it into like a 24/7 living environment, and is that a good thing?
It's a great thing. It's been great for Lower Manhattan. I mean, it used to be before 9/11 by 5 p.m., downtown was totally empty, and now it's a vibrant 24-hour community with grocery stores and nightlife, and that could be the future of a place like the Garment District if we can get people who live there and continue to work there, and there'll still be garment manufacturing. The soul of the community is still in fashion. It's going to be a really interesting, exciting place.
How long do you think it's going to take?
Years. It's not fast, but we got to start now.
So I have to talk to you about the asylum seeker crisis, which has taken more and more space in Manhattan, as well as now the outer boroughs, to put asylum seekers. What's the solution? We
got to have federal help here. I mean, this is a national problem. One city is bearing the entire challenge here. We've had over 105,000 arrivals so far, over 60,000 in the shelter system. Almost no federal help, very little financial help. They have not done the one thing we've asked, which is allow the migrants to work. And I've spoken to so many of these recent arrivals. The first question I get almost always is, how can I work? We need this workforce. We just need federal help to get them.
Why won't the president do it? This has been going on for over a year.
I'm baffled by this, Marcia. I just don't know. But I know we can't continue without federal help. Good news this week, they are going to allow us to set up a shelter in Floyd Bennett Field, but I don't think the federal government is setting up that. They're going to just allow us to go in and do it.
The state's going to have to lease the space and then pay for it ourselves.
Exactly.
So I have a question for you. The mayor wants the governor to sign an executive order that would force localities to accept asylum seekers, but the governor doesn't want to do it. She says the answer is not more shelters, but to allow them to work. Do you think that the governor has to come off that position and spread the number of asylum seekers around the state? Well, the governor has done a lot more than the federal government to help New York financially, and of course they've just opened a big shelter at Creedmoor and Queens. But, you know, the symbol of New York State is the Statue of Liberty. That's not just a symbol for the 5 boroughs. We, in our genes, welcome arrivals. And it really saddens me that other parts of the state are turning their back on this beautiful tradition. And there are parts of the state that have lost population that could use this infusion of young families who want to work. There's parts of the state that need this workforce. And I think as a state, we should rally to figure this out together. It's very upsetting to me that that hasn't happened yet. You know, we've talked a lot about the fact that cannabis stores are sprouting up all over the city, especially in your borough. Yeah. But what I'm hearing is a lot of people are complaining about secondhand marijuana smoke, not only on the street, but in apartment buildings where the marijuana smoke comes up through people's air conditioning and heating. Is there something that can be done about that? Actually, it's permitted for a building to outlaw smoking of marijuana. And in public housing, including NYCHA, that's already the rule in place. And some co-ops and condos have put that into place. I think it's more complicated in public. Nowhere that cigarette smoking is prohibited are you allowed to smoke marijuana. So that actually includes parks. But on the sidewalk, that's public space where this is permitted. So yeah, this could be a challenge. I'm actually more worried about the unlicensed stores. We've got 600 in Manhattan. It's a huge problem. Well, we're going to have to leave it right there for now. But our conversation continues right after the show on our streaming channel, CBS News New York.